All right, guys, I need to tell you about our sponsor for this week's episode of Conversations. It's Riverside. I've used Riverside since the company started. Riverside is an easy recording platform that you'd be able to send a link to your guests, maybe your co hosts. It doesn't matter. You can send them the easy link. People can sit in on the audience. You'll be able to record up to 4K, which is super helpful. In 2024, we need to have the best recordings possible for our podcast listeners, and this is how you do it. Riverside makes short form clips called magic clips. It's incredible. You can do audience recordings, like I said. You can do broadcast recordings and stream on different platforms. Again, as transcriptions, you can edit right from their platform. I've used it for more than 4 years, and I believe it is your time. If you're looking to start a podcast, if you have a podcast, maybe you're sick of other different video recording platforms, I would truly recommend listening and participating in Riverside. They gave me a 15% off code for each one of you. So you can go to the link in the description and you will be able to get 15% off your subscription. So go right now and start your podcast, start your YouTube channel this year. Thank you so much. So here's a big question. Are you particular on your water? So there's obviously like, are you anti like tap water? Are you only spring water, or do you not that tied into it?
I'm not that tied into it. Yeah, I'm not that tied into it. Whatever water presents itself to me, I'll be
Yeah.
fine. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I
yeah,
know that. And the new thing now is hydrogen water. Uh,
yeah,
Gary
yeah,
Brecka, he's got me.
yeah.
I'm like, dude, I gotta buy a hydrogen like water
Exactly,
machine. I bought it.
exactly.
I'm being influenced. It is what
S-
it is.
Spring water is fine. I would prefer like not like filtered water because then
Yeah.
you don't get the minerals that you need.
Right.
Um, but like spring water is fine. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, hydration. It is what it is.
exactly.
Well, everybody drink spring water, drink
Yes.
hydrogen water via Gary
Yes.
Brecka. This is
Yes.
Kilton. Anybody listening to this, welcome to Conversations. I'm super excited to jump in. This is
Yeah,
Kilton. Kilton, why don't you just share a little bit about who you are?
for
Maybe
sure.
just a recap of, who's Kilton?
Yes, no, for sure. I'd love to. So yeah, I born and raised in Miami.
Mhm.
Best city in the world. Don't think I'll ever leave. But I am an associate pastor here, at a church called Good Life Church. We launched, I fight with my pastor on this all the time. I say we launched 2020. He says we launched 2019. We launched 2019. It was like a small group of us in his living room.
Mhm.
Awesome. And when we got a building, we kind of did like another relaunching, if you will, in 2020 of October, which was
Mhm.
amazing. So yeah, been some years doing that. I'm also into content creating, so love doing that. And I as well work with an organization called First Priority. I think I was talking to you about this, but um, basically just resource students in middle schools and high schools to have Bible clubs in
Yeah.
their schools. So resource them with like curriculum guides, pizza, Bibles, all that stuff. So yeah,
That's so
it's a
cool.
great life. Yeah. I'm also married. I'm also
Let's
married.
go. Yes.
Important to say.
Most
Um,
importantly, yes.
yes, exactly. I'm also married. What was that? 2 weeks ago? What date is today's like the 24th.
25th. Yeah.
25th. Yeah. So the 12th of January, we made 1 year.
Wow.
So that's super
Let's
cool.
go.
So newly married, the holidays, this past holidays was my first holidays married. So that was
Hmm.
fun going,
Yes.
splitting up the families and all of that. It was incredible.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it gets fun because
Yeah.
you don't have to go to as many. And it's
Yeah.
like, dude, I got my own family now. Like I get it. I love
Exactly.
you. We're doing our thing here, bro.
Yeah,
I
exactly, and
love
there's a
that.
lot of them.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah, the
Yeah.
holiday season, it's like 37 different
Yes,
Christmases,
yes, exactly,
and you get
exactly.
the same card from the
Right.
14 different grandmas all get you the same $20 gift card, and you're like,
Yes.
I'll go to a dinner party for that."
100%. And you love it. And yeah, it's
Yes.
amazing. It's amazing.
Yes.
So yeah,
I love that.
adulting has been fun.
Yes, it's the best. Well, talk to me. I'm interested to really dive into the 3 kinda buckets you just said. So,
Yeah.
you're a part of a church plant, you're an
Yeah.
associate pastor, content creation, you're working
Yeah.
with students and,
Yeah.
like, really a mission-oriented, bigger than, just one local church. Like, how do you 1, where did all those passions start? Because
Yeah.
obviously I'm
Yeah.
sure your story started somewhere
For
and then it
sure.
turned into like, man, I feel called to do this. Like talk to me about the beginning phases of and the
Yeah.
discovery phase of that.
For sure. Okay, so when I was probably in middle school, are you familiar with you're familiar with TBN, Trinity Broadcasting
Yes.
Network? Yeah, okay, cool. So when I was about in middle school, it was the summer and my mom was watching TBN and there was a pastor preaching and praying for the students that were going into the next school year. And my mom called me and my brother up and I heard this dude talk about the gospel, young dude, cool dude, and the way he prayed and how on fire he was for Jesus. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was just super cool. And so I Googled him afterwards and realized he's a part of a church in Miami. So I was like, I got to go to this church because this dude is so cool. It was Rich Wilkerson Jr. And
Nice.
so his dad's church is called Trinity Church. And so,
Mhm.
begged my mom to go to their young adult service.
Mhm.
Um, it was Tuesday nights called The Rendezvous
Yep.
and fell in love with it. I was like, this is amazing. I walked in. It was my first time. I grew up going to more conservative churches. So it was my
Mhm.
first time going to like a mega church and
Yeah,
walking in and like the lights are dim and there's like fog on stage. I was like,
yeah,
what is this? This is crazy. And
for
all these
sure.
young people who just like love the Lord. And I was like, this feels like it's from another world. Like I don't like this is wild. This is crazy.
Mhm.
And so since then would beg my mom to go on and off to like that young adult service. I remember a year, maybe in high school, it was my birthday and my mom's and it fell on a Tuesday night. And my mom's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I want to go to the rendezvous. Like I want to go to church. Like
I love that.
it was just a place to be. Fell in love with it. My faith just grew so much going
Mhm.
to those services. And when I graduated high school, I planned to start going to Trinity Church on my own.
Mhm.
Did that, met a friend who was a part of the youth program. And so I didn't really know much people. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a part of the youth program too. And
Yeah.
I was just one of those people. You probably have those people in your church that like they joined the youth ministry and they just never left.
Yeah,
That was just me.
for sure.
I joined the youth ministry and I just never left. And being a part of that world was just so new to me. I didn't even know people like worked at churches. Like that was
Mhm.
like new. Like I didn't know that was a thing. I remember going
For
in,
sure.
someone was like, "Oh yeah, I was in the office today," and I was like, "What? There's people work here? Stop! That's crazy." Um,
Yeah.
and so and so when I started going, got offered a job there in their summer program for kids. Did that for 3 years. After the summer, I was a part of the school year. They have a school there. Worked that for
Mhm.
3 years. After the third year, got called um, upstairs by the pastors. They wanted me to be a part of the youth ministry as the associate youth pastor.
Mhm.
And so I did that while in that mix, joined their um, college program, which they had an extension site of Southeastern University. Did
Mhm.
that during that process, just like felt the call towards ministry. My heart just like fell in love with what I was doing, just like
Yeah.
ministry. And I was just like, I just want to do this for the rest of my life. Um,
Mhm.
and so, yeah, did that, was the associate youth pastor. And then the youth pastor resigned and I became the youth director. And then after becoming the youth director, um, the associate pastor of the church, God put it on his heart to start a church.
Mm.
And I was really close with the family, prayed through it, and that's kind of where the whole church planning came into be. But yeah,
That's
in a
so cool.
nutshell, that's like my ministry history,
Yeah.
falling in love with it, all of that.
Dude, I love that so much. Yeah, I'm super similar. So I got saved when I
Yeah.
was 15, no concept of church at all. I was the kid getting in trouble in church. Youth pastor pulled me aside like, "Dude, you need to be quiet. Kids are being distracted." And I just slowly but surely got super passionate about building the church. I was like,
Yeah.
you can get paid to literally build the church or
Crazy.
not, and sometimes not even get paid and still be
Right.
just as passionate.
Yes.
And you're in a 40-hour position and you ain't getting paid, but it's so worth it and so
So
fun.
fulfilling.
Oh, yes. I love that. So, talk to me about that initial church planning, like,
Yeah.
phase because I've my wife and I have been a part of church plants. I've been a part of 2,
Yeah.
and those seasons, when I look back on it, 1 were my absolute favorite part of my life,
Yeah.
seeing the body of Christ come together, super
Mm,
passionate,
for sure.
lot of time and commitment put into it, but also very
For
much
sure.
so a tough season, you're
Yeah.
tired and
Yeah.
yes, it is worth it. So talk
Yeah.
to me about that phase anyways of
Yeah.
the church plant.
For sure. Yeah, it was, I mean, it was a very peculiar phase. My now senior pastor, his wife, um, was battling cancer while we were both still working at Trinity Church.
Wow.
And we were kind of just praying through that, believing through that, just really believing, full of faith that like God's gonna heal her and we're gonna launch this church off of this crazy miracle. And people from all over is just gonna hear this crazy miracle. And yeah, it's just gonna, all be for the glory of God. And so we're just believing that, praying for that. And late 2019, she ended up passing.
Mm,
And so that was just like, I mean, I don't know if you've ever just experienced the feeling of like really, really believing in something and feeling like something was going to happen and then it doesn't. And then you have this like almost spiritual disappointment of just like,
yeah,
wait a minute, God, I thought you were going to do this. I thought
right.
this is what it was going to look like. And so that grieving process was super hard.
Mm,
And obviously, we just kind of went back to the drawing board of like, okay, are we hearing from the Lord? Is he
right.
really telling us to start a church with all of this? And so that was super, super difficult. A lot of nights, like in my
Mhm,
pastor's living room, just like crying out to the Lord. Like
mm,
we like laugh about those seasons and just remember like nights of a few of us just like at his house worshiping, and we would like stop worshiping and there was just puddles of tears like on the
mhm,
ground because of just like uh how hard we were just going after the Lord through
yeah,
that season. So yeah, grieving season, but after that, just through confirmation, just felt like the Lord was still calling us to do this. And so we're like,
mhm,
okay, did that. And it's super interesting because we felt like, okay, we're gonna launch this church off of this miracle of healing, but the story has really been like provision. Like
mhm,
not knowing what's gonna happen and the Lord just, like, providing and being with us every step of the way,
yeah,
to, like, the story about us getting our building and the equipment and people coming, musicians, like, it was just all, like, we couldn't write a better story. The Lord
right.
just, like, provided everything that we needed.
Mhm,
So yeah, it was a hard season. I think also, on me, it was definitely a season of, like, understanding calling, and
mm,
I say that because, usually, church plants, you're working, bivocational, and you're working another job and,
right.
doing all that, so I'm in the process of that, and I just remember feeling like, man, got my degree with Southeastern University ministerial leadership. I
Let's go.
know that I'm called to the local church, and so I had this moment of like, okay, I'm called to the local church, but I'm working this other job, um, and here in this church plant. not knowing what the Lord's gonna do. And I really wrestled with the idea of like working another job that wasn't in the church.
In the
I really
church.
wrestled
Yeah.
with it. And it was hard because I felt like, well, if I'm not working a job in the church, then am I missing out on my calling? Am I not fulfilling my calling? And I remember a moment and this really brought a lot of stress on me. Like I remember the first time. I'm not someone who like grew up dealing with like anxiety. And I remember
Mhm.
for the first time me feeling anxiety of me
Yeah.
feeling like my heart's racing, I can't eat, me feeling like I don't know if I'm missing something, if I'm not gonna walk into everything God has for me. And that like it took a toll on me. And I
Mhm.
remember I'm working this job. I was like a front desk associate at this hotel. And I'm working this job and I'm doing overnights as well. So that's just like a whole nother story.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I know. And so I'm working this job and there was the valet dude, and it would just be like me and him at night because it's overnight, so a lot of people weren't going in. And I would talk to him about Jesus, and he was kind of one of those dudes that just believed in a lot of like crazy, conspiracy
Mhm.
theories, things like that. He would talk to me about aliens, like just crazy
Nice.
stuff. And I remember there were like days where I would just like try to like get the gospel to him, like talk to him about Jesus, and it just wasn't going. And I remember
Mhm.
talking to the Lord, like talking to God and just being like, "Hey God, like I tried, I'm done though. Like I'm done. This dude is just like it's a lot. Like I'm done. Like I tried and I'm done." And I
Right.
remember, like, telling God
I
that.
give up.
Yeah, I give up. And
Mm.
I remember the next day, um, um, I'm talking to this dude. This dude comes into work. He looks like he hadn't slept the whole day. And he's talking to me about all of these conspiracy theories and all of these different things. And like it was to the point where like I could tell like he was getting anxious. And so
Mhm.
I talked to him and I go, dude, what if I tell you I believed everything you told me right now? I believed everything you said. I said, what if I believed it all and I got in my car and I drove home? And while I was driving home, I got into an accident and I died. I told him, what benefit would what you just told me be to my life? What if I just died right now? Would that be beneficial to my life at all? And he kind
Mm.
of just stopped and he was like, well, I guess not. And I was like, well, the message I'm telling you is beneficial. If you got in your car right now and died because you got into a car accident, the message I'm giving you would be beneficial because life doesn't stop here. There's an eternity waiting for us. And he just, for the first time, he stopped and he listened to me. And I
Yeah.
remember talking to him and I'm giving him the whole gospel presentation, and this dude starts crying.
Mm.
And I just asked him like, "Do you wanna receive Jesus today as your personal Lord and Savior?" And he said, "Yes." And I led him in the
Wow.
sinner's prayer. And after
So
that whole
cool.
moment, he goes, "Man, I feel like God sent you here simply just to speak to me." And I remember him saying that in that moment and being like, "You know what, Lord? I'm sorry for associating calling with a job and
Yep.
with a title." And it
Right.
was for the first time that I felt like I really understood that calling transcends any title
Mhm.
that you carry or any job that you have. And the Lord showed me that. And after he showed me that, yeah, life was just definitely different. And the
Yeah.
anxiety went away. And for sure, just
Mhm.
like gave me this whole new appreciation for the calling that he's placed over my life.
Yeah. Well,
That
thanks
was a
for sharing
mouthful.
that,
Yeah.
honestly. No, it's such a good story,
Yeah.
and as you were talking, I truly believe that when we're called,
Mhm.
every single person, regardless if you're listening to this and you're 16 or you're
Yeah.
60, you
Yeah.
will have a moment in your life where God truly does get to the point of your calling. So
Yeah.
many of us, including myself, have had seasons where I
Mhm.
thought my calling
Yeah.
was a title. Like you
Yeah.
said, my calling was, man, I just want to travel and preach, or man,
Yeah.
my calling, my and what I would introduce to that is instead of calling, what we would say is identity. And
Right.
that's a problem
Yeah.
when you're trying to coexist and God's trying to build his kingdom through you. So
Yes.
he will get it out of you, whether you like it or not, because regardless, he created you. So at the end of the day, he's gonna use you,
Yeah.
and that's what we do. We say, God, use me, and
Yeah.
6 months later, we're crying back to God, saying, God, I feel used, and
Right.
he 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 is gonna use you. He is using you, and as he's using you, he's pruning you, and
Yeah.
he's making Kilton the future husband. He's making
Yes.
Kilton into be the future leader.
Yeah.
And in those discovery seasons, I believe make us stronger, make us more filled with faith,
Yes.
more grounded and humble, because
Yeah.
we all need that right now.
Yes.
Um, so I one thing that I love asking anyone on our podcast
Mhm.
is about your rhythms. So
Yeah.
I've had such a different variety of people on this podcast. We've had
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, we've had lead pastors, we've had
Mhm.
whatever,
Yeah.
all of the above, and every single person has some sort of rhythm. Even no rhythm is a rhythm. So talk to me.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about, like, man, what does Kilton's week look like? Like, you got a
Yeah.
lot of different things going on.
For
You're a
sure.
husband, you're a leader,
Yeah.
you're a pastor, you're a content creator, you're traveling. Like,
Yes.
how do you handle and steward all of that?
Yeah, I think for me the rhythm really goes into knowing what's important for that day. And I think that
Mhm.
there's a lot of times again, yeah, there's times where I tell people all of the things that I'm a part of and they're like, dude, what? That's insane. How in the world do you do all of that? Well, all of it's not in one day. So,
Mhm.
each day brings a different focus. Each day brings a different priority. And I think that for me, I just know like, okay, my Mondays, these are the 3 things that I'm focusing on. My Tuesdays, these are the 3 things that I'm
Yep.
focusing on. And so I think just like prioritizing, put things specifically to the day that you're in really does help you to not feel overwhelmed with so many things. And then also, I feel like all of the things that I do genuinely do bring me so much joy. And so,
Mhm.
I know that there's people, maybe working jobs or they're a part of different things that doesn't necessarily bring them fulfillment. And I think that that's another conversation. But I think all of the things that I do genuinely bring me fulfillment.
Mhm.
I love talking about the word. I love going into middle schools and high schools and speaking to students about Jesus. Like, I love preaching on Sundays. Like, I love content creating. Like, I love
Mhm.
all of the things that I get to do. And so, I think when you also begin to see the things that you do or the ways that God uses you as a privilege, it
Mhm.
just brings this extra layer of benefit to your
Yeah.
life. So yeah.
Absolutely. No, I love that. Talk to me a little bit more about your content creation. I believe God has
Mhm,
given you a large influence, and
mhm.
I know that that comes with big responsibility, and it
Yeah,
comes with great stewardship
for
and
sure.
boundaries, especially as a
Yes,
married man. Like, talk to me about
yes.
that, and what can our listeners learn from you as you
Mhm.
went through this journey of being a content creator and
Yeah,
honestly, a pretty large influencer. Like, people love your
thank
content.
you.
I love your content. Yeah,
Thank
just
you.
just deep dive into that.
Yeah, for sure. I think, having talked to people who maybe wanted to get into that world of content creating,
Mhm.
I think, the thing that stops people is the idea that maybe they won't be successful in it.
Mm.
And, I usually tell people and this transcends, content creating. This is just like something to like live by in life. It's better to be obedient than it is to be successful.
Mm.
And what I mean by that, if the Lord has put something on your heart, like I think it's not really up to us to to try to guess and think and maneuver and okay, will this be successful? Will it get a lot of likes? Will it get a lot? And I think that the things that the Lord has put on my heart, I've just always seen his favor on it. And
Mhm.
things that like and I think that's been like the story of my life, like things that I maybe haven't even prayed about specifically. They were just desires in my heart. And I
Yep.
would just notice as I'm following the Lord, like he answers those desires that like I didn't even speak. I
Mhm.
didn't even tell him, you know? And so I think that like the success is really a man or woman of God truly following the Lord and prioritizing him in all that they do. The success
Yep.
isn't the likes, it isn't the followers.
Mhm.
It's you being obedient and walking through everything that the Lord has placed on your heart.
Yeah.
And so I think that's been like my story with social media. I started off in 2020 when a lot of people did. And I started off with TikTok and I didn't even know how TikTok worked. I um, posted like a funny video and my idea was like I was just going to post videos, save them and post them on IG because during quarantine, all of my friends were doing that. So I was like, okay, cool.
Mhm.
That's what I'm going to do too. And I remember posting a video and I thought TikTok worked the same way as IG. So I like obviously with IG, the people who are following you are the people who engage with your content. And so I go
Mhm.
on TikTok and I see likes and comments by random people, and I'm like, wait, what is this? Who are these people? How do they know me? And so I thought it was crazy. And so I was just like, you know, let me like I had this funny idea during 2020 of just like all the craziness that the world was going through. And I just had this funny idea and I was like, oh, let me just post it and I posted it on TikTok and it goes viral, a million views. And I was just like, wait, this is crazy.
Right.
I was just doing this as a joke. And so posted some other funny ones. They blew up. And so I just had a moment of like, okay, cool. I was just like joking around with this, but there's
Right.
this is a mission field. And so I was just like,
Mhm.
cool, quickly shifted gears to just like talking about Jesus. And so I started off just kind of seeing through that time, there was a lot of people spreading the gospel,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of people getting saved through a TikTok video. And so
Right.
my thoughts were like, okay, how can I help people who maybe aren't even a part of a church? They have questions. And so something that I noticed was people just asking, like, man, I'm a new Christian and I don't know what to listen to. And so I was like,
Mhm.
okay, cool. I saw that a lot on TikTok. So I was like, let me just post videos with song suggestions. I know some dope Christian artists, some dope Christian music. And so I started doing that. That goes viral and my platform really grew from that.
Mhm.
Got to network, meet so many different Christian artists, work with so many different Christian organizations and brands. And yeah, it's been a huge blessing. But it was really cool, just really coming from the standpoint of like, how can I be useful
Yeah.
on this app and what are the needs? And so I just
Mhm.
saw a need and I was like, okay, Lord, use me to help this need. And he did. And yeah, he brought all the success.
Dude, I love that so much. And what I love is you said something right at the beginning. You said right in 2020, and you said a lot of people did.
Yeah.
But the reality is, in the grand scheme of things, there actually was a good portion of people our age, but then there
Mhm.
was people most of the time older who were
Yeah.
looking and saying, "What are you doing?" But the reality is, what I love, Kilton, is how
Mhm.
quick you were and other Christians were to
Mhm.
go into spaces
Yeah.
that other creators were doing there other people were making content, other people
Yeah.
were going viral, so why
Yeah.
shouldn't we? Why should we
Mhm.
not be early adopters? I always say
Yes.
that, man, we gotta stop being late to the game when it comes to
Yes.
content, anything, like
Yeah.
business, it doesn't matter. We should be early to the game, if not
Yeah.
being the ones who are coming up with the ideas, so, dude,
Right.
I love that so much, and as we wrap up,
Mhm.
I would love for you to talk to a lot of our demographic, or a lot of people who are listening to this are
Mm.
young leaders. So that could
Yeah.
mean an atheist entrepreneur who found me on Twitter, and then on
Yeah.
the other scheme, a young adult pastor who's saying,
Yeah.
"Man, I just want to learn. Man, would you just give that
Mhm.
person, the
Mhm.
21-year-old who's young,
Yeah.
hungry, wants to make a difference for God, man,
Mhm.
give them a couple recommendations based on you,
Yeah.
having skin in the game, man.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna go back to that conversation of calling, and
Yeah.
I love that you associated it with identity because that we, especially when you're young, we go through a lot of identity crises.
Oh, yeah.
And we're just like, who am I? I don't know who I
Right.
am. God, why did you put me on this earth? And I know I went through so many of those. And when I read scripture and it comes to calling, what I've realized is the calling over every person's life is not their vocation, but the calling over everyone's life is to God.
Yeah.
It's to him. And so I think that it took me a while to realize that God doesn't call us to a vocation. He calls us to himself.
Mhm.
And he appoints us to do different things, but he calls us to himself. And so I think that I had to realize and pause for a second and say, the calling over my life, the identity that is within me is simply to just be a child of God.
Mm.
And I think when you make it that simple, like there's a weight that just like falls off and you're like, okay, all I'm supposed to be in this world is a child of God. Like I'm
Yeah.
not supposed to be this, successful that. Like all of those things come and I believe that God appoints us to different things, but the calling over our life, our identity is simply just rooted in being a son or daughter.
Mhm.
And I think that once I really grabbed a hold of that, I no longer chased the title, the
Right.
position, all of those different things. But there was this contentment that came upon me that all he wants me to be is his son.
Mhm.
Um, and once you really walk in that, everything else just comes. Everything else comes. But I think that you have to get to that place first, and that has to
Yes.
be the main thing. Let's first, before we learn how to be entrepreneurs, business
Mhm.
owners, let's just learn to be sons and daughters.
Yeah.
And I
Amen.
think once you get that, everything else will come.
Yes, everything else is a byproduct of your
Yeah.
quiet time with Jesus.
Yes.
The end of the
Yes.
day, it's the Sunday morning kids ministry sermon that you're talking to a first grader about. It's still relevant no matter
So,
what.
yeah.
It's all the outcomes that you're praying
Yeah.
for all start in the quiet place
Yes.
with Jesus, and I would venture to say second priority is how you treat your spouse. All those things, man. At
Yes.
the end of the day,
Yes.
you want big influence, you wanna
Yes.
be all that's gonna happen by byproduct of how you steward your relationship with Jesus and your
Yeah.
spouse if you have one. So, Kilton, thank
Yeah.
you so much, dude, for being on. It's been so much
Thank
fun.
you.
I
Thank
always love
you.
I always love chopping it up with you.
Yes.
You're in Eastern time, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's
Yes.
like
I am.
basically dinner time for you.
Yes. Yeah.
I just had my lunch. So you you guys just might have pros and cons of your time zone. The
For
negative
sure.
side, is you're watching the Heat play at 10 p.m. I'm gonna be honest.
But it's great because we did all of our responsibilities,
Yes.
early. So I like, watching the game later. For sure.
Yeah, you guys are done with your work, and I just got done with my morning workout. Not
Yeah,
good. Um,
exactly. We've clocked
you,
out already.
oh yeah, dude. You guys are going to dinner, man, and we're
Yeah,
we're just getting started. It's
I love
hilarious.
it.
Thanks again for being on, man. It's been so much
Yes.
fun. I hope that every single person listening to this,
Yeah.
how can Kilton, how can they find you? How can they contact you?
Yes. TikTok, Instagram. I'm truly convinced that I'm probably the only Kilton alive in the world. So if
Yes,
you just
probably.
type in Kilton, I should come out.
You'll be up, guaranteed.
Yeah, definitely.
That's hilarious. Well, yes, everyone go follow him, go look at his
Mhm.
content, go engage with it. He's incredible. Thanks again.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.